Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, today we're going to be reading this article, U.S. warships received electromagnetic radiation from UFOs. It's a very strange story, folks, and I'm happy to read it to you today. So let's get into it now. The following accounts from witnesses detail examples of U.S. warships sustain alien electromagnetic radiation during encounters with UFOs. U.S. aircraft carrier stopped by UFO. This encounter occurred in 1971 while aboard the aircraft carrier USS John F. Kennedy, CVA-67, now CV-67 in the Bermuda Triangle. I was assigned to the communications department of the Kennedy and had been in this section about a year. The ship was returning to Norfolk, Virginia after completing a 2-week operational readiness exercise, or in the Caribbean. We were to stand down for 30 days after arriving in Norfolk, Virginia, to allow the crew to take leave and visit family before deploying to the Mediterranean for 6 months. I was on duty in the communications center. My task was to monitor 8 teletypes printing the fleet broadcasts. On the top row were 4 teletypes, each printing messages from 4 different channels. On the bottom row were 4 more doing the exact same thing, except the signal was carried on different frequencies. If one of the primary receivers started taking hits, I would be able to retrieve the message from the bottom one. I also notified facilities control of any hits so they could tune the receivers. On the other side of the compartment room was the NAV-COM-OP-NET, Naval Communications Operations Network. This was the ship-to-shore circuit, with the top teletype being the receive and the bottom as the send, known as a duplex circuit. Next to this was the task group circuit for ship-to-ship communications, task group operations, or TGO. It was in the evening, about 8:30 p.m., and the ship had just completed an 18-hour flight ops. I had just taken a message off one of the broadcasts and turned around to file it on a clipboard. When I turned back to the teletypes, the primaries were typing garbage. I looked down to the alternates, which were doing the same. I walked a few feet to the intercom between us and the facilities control. I called them and informed them of the broadcast being out. A voice replied that all communications were out. I then turned and looked in the direction of the NAV-COM-OP-NET and saw that the operator was having a problem. I then heard the task group operator tell the watch officer that his circuit was out also. In the far corner of the compartment was a pneumatic tubes going to the signal bridge where the flashing light and signal flag messages are sent receive. There is an intercom there to communicate with the signal bridge, and over this intercom we heard someone yelling, "There is something hovering over the ship." A moment later we heard another voice yelling, It's God! It's the end of the world!" We all looked at each other. There were 6 of us in the comm center, and someone said, "Let's go have a look." The comm center is amidships, just under the flight deck, almost in the center of the ship. We went out of the door, through facilities control, and out that door, down the passageway corridor, about 55 feet to the hatch that goes out to the catwalk on the edge of the flight deck, opposite from the island or that part of the ship where the bridge is. If you have ever been to sea, there's a time called the time of no horizon. This happens in the morning and evening just as the sun comes up or goes down over the horizon. During this time, you cannot tell where the sea and sky meet. This is the time of evening it was. As we looked up, we saw a large glowing spear. Well, it seemed large. However, there was no point of reference. That is to say, if the spear were low, say 100 feet above the ship, then it would have been about 200 or 300 feet in diameter. If it were, say, 500 feet above the ship, then it would have been larger. It made no sound that I could hear. The light coming from it wasn't too bright, about half of what the sun would be. It sort of pulsated a little and was yellow to orange. We didn't get to look at it for more than about 20 seconds because General Quarters battle stations was sounding and the communication officer was in the passageway telling us to get back into the comm center. We returned and stayed there. That was out battle station. We didn't have much to do because all the communications was still out. After about 20 minutes, the teletype started printing correctly again. We stayed at General Quarters for about another hour, then secured. I didn't see or hear of any messages going out about the incident. Over the next few hours, I talked to a good friend that was in CIC, Combat Information Center, who was a radar operator. He told me that all the radar screens were just glowing during the time of the incident. I also talked to a guy I knew that worked on the navigational bridge. He told me that none of the compasses were working and that the medics had to sedate a boatswain's mate that was a lookout on the signal bridge. I figured this was the one yelling it was God. It was ironic that of the 5,000 men on a carrier, that only a handful actually saw this phenomena. This was due to the fact that flight ops had just been completed a short time before this all started, and all the flight deck personnel were below resting. It should be noted that there are very few places where you can go to be out in the open air aboard a carrier. From what I could learn, virtually all electronic components stopped functioning during the 20 minutes or so that whatever it was hovered over the ship. The two ready CAPs, Combat Air Patrols, or CAPs, which were two F-4 Phantoms that are always ready to be launched, would not start. I heard from the scuttlebutt, its slang rumor mill, that 3 or 4 men in trench coats had landed and were interviewing the personnel that had seen this phenomena. I was never interviewed, maybe because no one knew that I had seen it. A few days later, as we were approaching Norfolk, the commanding and executive officers came on the closed-circuit TV system that we had. They did this regularly to address the crew and pass on information. During this particular session, the captain told us how well we did on the oar and about our upcoming deployment to the Mediterranean. At the very end of this spiel, he said, I would like to remind the crew that certain events that take place aboard a naval combat ship are classified and are not to be discussed with anyone without a need to know. This was all the official word I ever received or heard of the incident. Being young and excited about my visit home and going to the Med, I completely forgot about it until years later when my wife and I wanted to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind at the movies when it first came out. In fact, the friend that had been the radar operator was with his wife and went with us. As we walked across the parking lot to my car, I asked him if he remembered what we had experienced years earlier in the ship. He looked at me and said he never wanted to talk about it again. As he said it, he turned a little pale. I never talked about this incident again. When I discovered aliens and strange phenomena on MSN and started reading the posts, I started thinking about it again. Now I seem obsessed and find out all I can about this phenomena. Jim Koff, Mount Airy, Maryland. Incredibly strange story, isn't it, folks? Do you think this guy and his crew actually saw a UFO? And what was it doing over their ship? I have no idea. But it does bring to mind other encounters between the military and, well, other supernatural phenomena, and even other UFO encounters, folks. Now, do you suppose that we're seeing something similar to what we see with various UFOs and strange phenomena basically being seen over various military bases? Because those people have reported seeing Bigfoot, or basically seeing lights in the sky, and, well, it makes me think that maybe this UFO was very interested in the ship because maybe it was doing something that maybe brought this UFO's attention to it. Maybe it was the entire group, in fact. I'm talking about maybe if this ship was part of a fighter group or maybe some sort of a little Navy operation, that maybe this UFO was interested in what they were doing. Either to study them or maybe something that maybe this guy, this witness here, didn't know about that was something, well, to do with this ship or maybe what they were doing in the area. I'm just saying, folks, and spitballing ideas. I'm just not sure what this thing wanted, but it's certainly something to consider. Either way, do you think that this UFO was going to maybe attack them? I kind of doubt it. I think it was just maybe buzzing them, and maybe there could be a cause. Maybe when these UFOs buzz military operations, like maybe bases or basically these naval groups, maybe they're making, well, us aware of them, because maybe they, on some level, want us to know that we are watching you. And while I say this isn't overt hostility, because maybe they want to basically let us know that we are, well, watching you, that they aren't going to attack us, because if they wanted to, they could do it at any time. I'm just saying, folks, is maybe this is a little tit for tat, and they're just basically, well, in some way having fun with us, but also basically making us know that, yeah, we're here, folks, so know and basically be wary of us. Either way, very interesting, but we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics, They're Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. There are other links to Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch or BitChute, Noxanes, Webit Co-op, and Stitched Together Pics. And remember, I upload exclusive videos of Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch or BitChute. They do not upload to YouTube. If you want to see them, use those links down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to my channels on those websites. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.